So I only needed that brief little segment of this episode talking about Hina and Akari's father just for me to understand that that dude is a certified scumbag. Like, are you serious right now? Like, the father just straight up did that to his own... Oh. That really, it makes me angry. That really makes me angry, because stuff like that does indeed happen in everyday life, and it just... Seeing what Hina and her entire family is going through right now, what they have been through already, and it's seeing how the father just walked out like that even before the mother died, if it just never even came back to even give his children any support, it just shows what type of person this man is, especially when he moves on with his life and has a kid and a new girlfriend or whatever. That's messed up. That's really, really, really messed up. So, I have a feeling, I have a very, very strong feeling that we're probably going to get to see the father of Hina and all of them and what he has done. Probably going to be an arc focusing on that. Maybe not for this season, I don't know. But I know for a fact one of these days, even if we don't get it in the anime, but in the manga, there's definitely going to be an arc focusing on the father and what he has done to the sisters, and maybe either him trying to come to terms with it and ask for forgiveness, or just overall them just wiping their hands clean and just moving on completely and never worrying about this man ever again. Something like that is eventually bound to happen. But anyways, though, let's talk about something. So, the teacher. The teacher that teaches, Rei. I forget his name. His name is, slipping my mind, so please forgive me. But basically, he's a very, very good dude in this episode, especially for what he says. And the reason why he's upset with Hina's teacher is because she is someone that is not being a proper figure for the students to look up to, because at the end of the day, a teacher is not just someone that teaches the class and is someone that teaches them about, like, math, or teaches them about, writing, or science, whatever. A teacher is not just for that. A teacher is also someone a student should look up to and want to be like. Someone that is like this symbol, someone that is like this idol, someone that you strive to be like because they are this figure in your life that is a shining beacon. And in this case, that's what this teacher should be doing for Hina, being this great figure that stands up and puts Hina down the proper path where she could stand up to these bullies and help her out. Even if she doesn't want to really get involved, she should be considerate enough to try to be that figure to help her out somewhat, but she hasn't even done that, and that is why he is angry. Why he is upset with the teacher is because she doesn't even want to be a proper figure, a proper role model for the children that is currently going through issues. So I really like that. It was very realistic, and I gotta hand it to the writer for that alone. Now, speaking of what the writing and all of that, I want to take a few moments to discuss something, and that is that the writer hasn't concluded Hina's arc yet, obviously. And the writer decided to go right into another arc, which is when Nikaido and his illness. And I just want to say, I am very happy, very, very, very happy with this episode and the writer for doing that, and let me explain why. Many might be upset, because usually writers, the reason why they do this is because they want to keep one plot point, like big plot structure, for one arc, and they don't want to have multiple different plot threads and stuff just going on throughout the story at the same time, because it can become very confusing, and it can make it to where the readers lose track of what's going on with individual characters, which is understandable. From a writing perspective, it would be very hard. It would. However, because of this series and what it's trying to tackle and how it tries to keep grounded in realism, the two arcs going on at the same time is very realistic, because number one, even though Hina is getting bullied, she's having her issues and all that, and obviously Rei's trying to help her out, and all the sisters are working together, even though all that is happening, the world keeps on turning. It does not stop. Just because you're having your own issue does not mean that everybody else is just stopped alongside of you. Everybody else has their own issues going on alongside of you. It's not just you. That's just how it is. And so, I like how realistic that was. Even though Hina is going through such a horrible time right now, stuff with Nikaido is still going on as well, because that doesn't stop. Stuff like that doesn't just go away because, oh, someone else is getting bullied. Other stuff happens too. So I like how this, episode was grounded in realism and seeing how Nikaido has his own issues, even though Hina is still having her issues. Not many writers want to tackle this because it can be rather complicated, which I understand why. I'm not going to fault writers for that because it makes sense, but even then though, it takes a very skilled writer to be able to handle 2 arcs at the exact same time. So anyways, let's get into, Nikaido. So Nikaido's segment of this episode, it hits you right in the gut, because we all know that Nikaido had health problems. It was common sense. If you've been paying attention since Season 1, you know for a fact something was going on with Nikaido. He had health problems. He was someone that obviously couldn't sit for long periods of time. He had some form of, stomach problems or whatever. We didn't know exactly what it was, but we knew that there was definitely some problems within him, and it was something very bad he had at a very early age. So it wasn't something that was like a cold that could just go away. It was a problem that could continue to be consistent ever since he was a kid, and so it wasn't something that was rather simple to deal with. And in this case, Nikaido is a big focus of this episode, and we're getting into a little bit more information about him, and we do know that in terms of his character, he's always been this bright light. He's always been this dude that is like the shining figure in Rei's life, and Rei has always been in this darkness all by himself, and it's the sisters and the reason why he's able to move on and be like he is now. However, Nikaido was always this person in the shogi world that was a bright light and always trying to give Rei some form of goal, objective, and something to strive for. In this case, that is what he is. He is a rival. He is Rei's rival. And after all of this time, even though Nikaido has these health problems, he's always stood tall and stood up to anyone that tried to face him and tried to be the best shogi player. And he always challenged Rei and wanted to challenge him at any time because he wanted to prove he was better, which shows that he had this rivalry going on with Rei. And Rei, obviously, from what we have seen from him as the watchers of the series, he hasn't completely respected, Nikaido's rivalry. Like, he hasn't respected his viewpoint and how he views, but Rei is now starting to change. He's evolving and starting to learn more about shogi and how to appreciate a lot more, but also to fight for it instead of just playing it because it's the only thing that you can really hold on to. And so basically, Nikaido in this episode, we find out about how he has this illness that's incurable. He's had it for a very long time, and, it could possibly kill him one day. It's definitely a possibility. And Rei finds this out and all that, and the overall backstory to it and how he didn't want to be viewed as a weakling even when he played shogi was truly saddening, because let's look at his life. Number one, he's a rich kid, okay? At first glance, if you were to, judge his character and all that, he looks like a rich kid. And he looks like he would have everything. He would have a silver spoon in his mouth. He would be able to get anything he wanted. He wouldn't have really any problems to attain anything he wanted because of how rich he was and all that. It just seemed like he was completely fine. But regardless of all of that, though, he had his own set of issues. He was a very weak kid. He couldn't really do much. He couldn't fight. He couldn't do sports. He couldn't really hang out with friends and have a lot of fun because he was just a sick kid. And so he had a very isolated upbringing. He didn't really have a childhood like a normal child would. And in this case, when we see how he turned to shogi, it was like it was the only area that he could actually be strong in. I mean, it's like this. You're a weakling. You can't really do much, but you find this one thing in your life that you are actually good at and you're strong at, and you could face the top tier people. That would make you feel good about yourself. In this case, that's what Nikaido had. He had shogi. It made him feel good because he wasn't a weakling. He was not weak while playing shogi, and he always tried to remain like, this strong-willed individual, and that's why he didn't want to tell Rei that he had this illness, because if Rei knew he had this illness, he obviously would have taken pity on Nikaido, probably either let Nikaido win and all that because he didn't want him to sit there and suffer for that many turns, or he would have defeated him very quickly. But most of the time, people would just take pity on him and not really want, to draw out the match too long. And so Nikaido didn't want that. He didn't want someone looking down on him and letting him win, because it makes him feel weak. It makes him feel like it's pointless, and it would go back to how he already feels about himself in real life. So it's a very sad cycle what you see going on there, and it explains a lot of reasons why he didn't ever want to explain this to Rei in the first place. But let's get into the reaction to him and how people would view him without even knowing him. Shimada. We know Shimada's character. We know how he is. We have first-hand glimpsed how good of a character he is and how he views others around him, how he takes care of others. He is not a bad dude. By any means, he is probably one of the best human beings you could probably ever meet in the real life or in an anime or whatever. Just doesn't matter. Basically, he is the best person you could possibly meet. And so we know he's a good guy. And in this case, we see how he first met Nikaido, and his overall reaction to Nikaido was very negative. It was actually super negative. It goes against what you would assume, you know, Shimada would act like. But the way he acted was very realistic, because that's how people would view someone. I mean, if you walked in, you know, you were like a teacher or whatever, and you were looking over these kids and stuff that were playing shogi, and obviously this is your profession, and you see this kid come in and all that obviously has a silver spoon in his mouth, where he's very rich at the very least, you'll start having your own opinions, thinking about it in your mind and all that, criticizing someone, and without even knowing them. This is just how people are. People do that all the time. That's just a common thing that everybody does. People judge people even if you don't know them, and so he was judging Nikaido for not even knowing him just because he thought he was a rich kid, very spoiled and all that, could get away with anything, have his own food, have an old man carry his food, and he didn't know anything until he finally got to see how much he played shogi, how good he was, and also got to see his house and how he lived. That was a very nice scene, just to show that even though you're such a good person, you could be a good person, you could still do heinous things. And that's what Shimada did. He did something very awful, but it's a very human reaction. That's how normal people would react to someone. So just overall, very good scene. So that's about it when it comes to this week's episode of March Comes In Like a Lion. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? Please be honest in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. And if you like this video, please leave a like. Love you guys. Please be safe. Chibi out.